Good morning, everybody. Today is June 13th, 2024. Welcome to the Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee meeting. And for today's meeting, we are going to, we first call this meeting to order, and it is now 9:04 a.m. And is there anybody here from the public who'd like to speak on an item that is not listed on the agenda?
Madam Chair, we don't have anybody in the attendees column, and we have nobody present and no speaker slips turned in.
Very good, thank you. Next item is we'd like to consider the minutes from our May 9th, 2024 meeting. So if committee members could please pull those up. Oh, and thank you, hearing support. And I was not present at this meeting, and Matt Mayton, our alternate for the Ag Commissioner's Office, was present. Oh, do we need to take a roll call?
Yep.
Sorry, backing up.
We'll start roll call. We have Alex.
Here.
David Lackey.
Here.
Stephanie Stark.
Here.
Glenn Gnar.
Here.
And just joining us, Royce Larson. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. We have a quorum.
Drama.
Thank you, Royce. Okay, going back to the meeting minutes, is Matt Mayton, is he online? Okay. Okay, anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 9th as presented.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Royce Larson. Alex. David Lackey.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
I'm going to abstain.
And Glenn Gnar.
Aye.
Motion carries 401.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to our agenda management. We have today 8 items, and last one is, and those are all new items. We don't have any continuing items today, and we also have a section for reports of committee members. Is there anyone today at the meeting who would like to continue an item that is listed on the agenda? And if so, please state your name and which agenda item, your purpose for continuance, and which meeting you'd like to continue to.
Hi, Francis. Would you like to continue an item?
Yes, good morning, Chair Stark, members of the committee. My name is Francis Romero. I'm a senior planner with TW Land Planning and Development, and we just recently became the representative for Ballard Ranch LLC. I just received the file dump Monday night, so I am not prepared to speak on this matter, but I can be available and ready to go at your next scheduled meeting, which I believe is on July the 11th.
That is correct, Ms. Romero, and we did have an email exchange indicating that you might want to continue. So I make a motion to continue item number 8 to the July 2024 meeting, July 11th.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll do a roll call. Royce Larson. Alex.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
Glenn Gnar.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Romero, and we look forward to seeing you on July 11th.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Okay. You're welcome. And that takes us to item number 1. We'll start new items. This is for Verizon at 2775 East Clark Avenue. And this is Ag Preserve Contract 96 AP008. And Veronica King is our planner from the county. Is there anybody else who is representing item number 1? either in person or on our internet, joining us through remote.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Armando Montes with Sequoia Deployment Services, representing the agent. I'm the agent representing Verizon Wireless.
Good morning. You said Armando Montes?
That's correct.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And is the planner here today, Veronica King?
I don't currently have Veronica King online. I can send her a message right now and see if she can get on.
Okay, that would be terrific. Thank you, Mr. Montez. So we have a number of items in our packet regarding this case. Oh, Veronica just jumped on. Great. Welcome, Veronica.
Hi, thank you. I'm available
Hi.
for questions. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks for joining us this morning. And we're just starting with item number 1, the case. And we have it in our agenda, but would you or Mr. Montez like to provide an overview for the committee?
Is Armando on? Yes. I'll let Armando take it away and add anything if necessary after his presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Montez?
Okay. All right, guys. Verizon is proposing a new wireless telecommunications facility, as you mentioned, at 2775 East Clark Avenue in the city of Santa Maria. The proposed project is located on the northwestern portion of the property, set back 258 feet 11 inches from the closest property line to the north and 111 feet to the closest property line to the west. The facility itself is designed as a 3-sector, 100-foot tall monopole that will sit in a 900 square foot equipment lease area, securely enclosed by an 8-foot tall chain link fence. And the proposed project will not impact existing agriculture operations because it's being designed in an area where there's no active agriculture, or will it cause the removal of any land. Pretty much just a quick summary of what this project is about and how it kind of relates to the ag preserve.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. And up on our screen, we have a picture of a facility and there is a map. Could you maybe help us identify where the proposed location for the installation of the telecommunication facility is going to be relative to where the map is?
Sure. So this is, I believe this is off of Clark Avenue, looking north. And so the proposed project is going to be probably to the, I would say, northwest of this photo, in the back of the facility. And so you can see on the map up there, the little square with the S is kind of where the site is going to be. And yeah, this is just photos of the actual area itself. This is the back portion of the property.
Is there a better map or a suggested map that you have, Veronica, that you could pull up for us? We could just see where it is to help orient the committee.
Would the site plan be sufficient? I that should be included in
Okay.
what was uploaded for APAC. If you could open that on your screen. Sorry, I can't quite see what else you have on there, but there should be a plan set. Do you see that?
Can we show up on the screen where the packet is? Maybe we can pull up the right. There you go. So that's what we're seeing, our list.
Okay. Let me review this really quickly. It should be the biggest file in there, but I can't quite see.
Clark
There we
Avenue,
go.
ZD100 for some middle.
Is it the one that's 10,000 kilobytes?
I would assume.
no,
Those are narratives. Those are Word docs.
it's about like 5 items up in the bottom. It's a ZD 100 for submittal 02, so it's about 4,000. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
There you go.
There's a site plan, probably the second
Okay.
or third sheet. Oh,
So
that's her.
there's Clark Avenue.
Yeah, so I believe what they're labeling Clark Avenue back there is more of like a smaller road. The larger Clark Avenue that has the larger thoroughfare is going to be a little bit more south.
Okay, so
from-
we're gonna pull down this map and we'll find something that this looks like it's incorrect. Incorrectly labeled. Okay, this one shows the APNs.
Yep. Okay. So as you can tell on the bottom right there, that's Clark Avenue on the very bottom.
Yes.
We are up here towards the top left corner.
Okay.
If you want to. Yep. So we'll be right there, right in front of those.
The water tanks?
Water tanks, correct.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you could tell the kind of little dotted line area. That's kind of the proposed area we're looking at. We recently did a site visit out here. It's pretty flat, not being utilized. And that's where we felt we could place a project where it wouldn't have any impact on any day-to-day operations.
Okay, Mr. Montez, let's go ahead and we'll pull up a map of the site.
Okay.
Okay. So it's in that area there. This is the site. This is the parcel.
That's correct. Yeah. So right.
Okay,
right-
because when
right where
we,
you're
when the
hovering over.
committee's looking at not just the project itself, but just the overall, there's Clark. Yes. Okay, so the whole contract is coterminous with the parcel, outline of the parcel. Okay. And then where the water tanks are, we see that right now. And where is the proposed facility on the, near adjacent to the, right there? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And there's no agriculture in that area? Well, that specific spot.
Correct.
Just one general question. So for the height of that towers, is there any like guy wires or anything that would extend from the tower within that area, or how is it?
No,
the-
it's a standalone. There's no guy wires needed.
Okay.
It's it'll sit in the ground pretty firmly there. So no additional footprint would be needed.
Okay.
So in general, just looking at, Uniform Rule 2-9, it is stated in the uniform rules that in general, communication facilities are considered compatible uses. So just kind of looking at my fellow committee members, seeing if there's any concerns about compatibility with proposal and the agriculture on the contract or the property.
Not with the proposal. I think the location obviously is not and doesn't have any, production history. So I think that's a good location. And as far as ongoing eligibility, I do recall it might have been a year ago or maybe a little bit more. We reviewed, there was an application for some additional expansion of, I think it was greenhouses or some more in the northeast area. And at that time, we did look at a more comprehensive, the structures on the site and everything. And so I'm comfortable relying upon that previous review. I know there's a lot of activity on here, but I think it was pretty clear that there was no concern about other structures and envelopes, and there's no principal dwelling. So I think I'm comfortable with ongoing eligibility as well.
And before we, I wanted to ask the planner if she had any questions or comments for us, but before we do that, any questions for committee members or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Montez, for your overview. Veronica, was there any questions you have for us or anything we should be looking at specifically other than what we've already discussed? Or any concerns on your end?
I don't have any concerns. I appreciate your review. Armando, do you have anything?
I don't have anything else at this time. Thank you, everyone, for your time and allowing us to present our project.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I make a motion to consider the request consistent with the uniform rules and that the property is maintaining ongoing eligibility. For contract number 96 AP 008 is maintaining ongoing eligibility.
Second.
We have a first and a second. I'll do a roll call. Royce Larson, Alex, David Lackey,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
and Glenn Kennard.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Montez and Ms. King for attending our meeting. We always appreciate the planner involvement.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, going on to items. The next item 2 and 3 are connected. They are 2 new proposed ag preserve contracts. So even though we're going to be considering them and making motions separately, we will possibly be discussing them together just for clarity. And the first one, number 2, is the Nolan Ranch West. And this is, we have, our planner is Steve Connor. And we are considering the proposal from the agent is West Newth. Mr. Newth, are you here today or perhaps another representative from Nolan Ranch?
Can I, this is Peter Nolan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Mr. Nolan.
I'm the owner, so I'd like to present if that's okay.
Okay. Yes, that's okay. So currently we are considering, this is for a new contract. I'll just kind of set it up, Mr. Nolan, and you can give us more details.
There.
We also have another gentleman at the podium. Oh, hi. Hi, Mr. Nolan.
You hit the button right there, and then if you see right, you're on. Hello.
Okay, so we have a Joe Nolan and a Mr. Nolan. Okay. All right, and would you like to go ahead and provide us with an overview, Mr. Nolan?
Yeah, this is Peter Nolan, and my brother Joe is present, who manages the ranch. We purchased. Many of you are probably familiar. This is the so-called Blair Ranch or Roblar Ranch. It's just adjacent to Los Alamos on the 101, roughly 5,400 acres. It was owned by Kendall Jackson. We purchased it from Kendall Jackson in 2021. It was not subject to ag preserve, so we're here seeking to put the property into ag preserve. As many of you may know, this property has been fairly controversial. There's a significant California tiger salamander metapopulation on the property. And for quite a period of time, Kendall Jackson basically attempted to put in a more robust agricultural development on the property. And the short story is they gave up and sold the property to me. And my theory was working with Fish and Wildlife in California, Fish and Wildlife, we would come to an agreement on a conservation easement. And so what's happened with the property is that we have struck an agreement in principle. We expect to have it fully executed in the fourth quarter of this year to put the entire ranch under a conservation easement for the benefit of the California tiger salamander in particular. This would basically prohibit any cultivation or any development of the property whatsoever, with a couple small exceptions. We can plant only out of the 5,400 acres, we can plant roughly 70 acres of grass, hay for cattle. We can continue to run cattle on the property. We do have two workforce housing buildings on the property, but pretty much we are not allowed to cultivate. If we execute the agreement, we were not allowed to cultivate anything else on the property. So we believe, or I believe, this is exemplary for ag preserve, as we pretty much can't even do regular agriculture. All we can do is run it as a cattle ranch. And right now, we're paying full taxes on the property, which we're looking to basically put in the ag preserve and get agricultural taxes based on the uses for the property, which is nothing more than grazing cattle. And I'll stop and see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for that overview, Mr. Nolan. I was wondering if you could point us to maybe one of the maps that has, an overview of the entire property. David has pulled up one of the. Yeah, and so, just to kind of go back to square one, is that the overview map? Because we had information in our packet I think the packet in number 3 for committee members has more items in it and might be more helpful to start with that packet as opposed to number 2. And so would you describe, Mr. Nolan, would this, or Joe, who's at the podium, would you say that this is the best map overview of both the properties or all the properties involved for 2 and 3?
It is.
Okay. Doesn't really have the. Okay, so this one has the actual APN outlines, correct? And then there's an assessor parcel map as well included in the packet.
Chair Stark, this is Steve Connor, the planner. This is
Hi.
actually hi. Good morning. Thanks. There are 2, obviously, as you talked about earlier. This is one half of it, and so this is what would be the western contract, and then the eastern contract was the one that you just had up. So they're 2 different maps. I don't think we have a map of both at the same time.
Okay. Thank you for that. So this one is, just so I'm clear, we're considering the first one, which is item number 2. And so that has the 2 APNs ending in 012 and 014. And is this the correct map we're looking at here? Oh,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
yes.
if I may add, this is Alex Yeremovich, County Surveyor. I'm a little bit familiar. There was a case for certificates of compliance with Mr. Jackson. And I believe the 2 APNs 14 and 11 are one single legal parcel. According to a lot line adjustment that's recorded in around 2000. And so the two cases probably should be one case for at least for these two large pieces, 11 and 14.
Okay, so we're just still getting ourselves oriented here, and we're gonna pull up an air photo that has the entirety of the property, and that I think will help get us a little oriented. And thanks for your patience, Joe Nolan. I know you're at the podium and you'd like to speak as well. We're just trying to get ourselves kind of organized because there's a lot of APNs. We want to make sure we're clear on what we're considering.
So this is the parcel 11, the larger one to the east, which would be number 3 on our agenda. And then to the west of there were the other parcels. So this is parcel 14. And that is crossed by, I think, Drum Canyon Road goes through the property. Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct. Drum Canyon Road goes through the property.
this is parcel 13.
It still doesn't.
Just
split.
yeah, just as far as the APNs that we have referencing. And then this is parcel 12. Basically this.
So that
And so can you do that one more time? So this one is, which one?
This is 11.
Uh-huh.
14, 12, and 13.
Okay. So for item number 2, we're considering which ones?
Considering this.
Okay, and that's the western property. Okay,
But I wanted to let Alex maybe clarify what
Yes.
you're talking
Okay.
about.
please do.
can click on both at the same time with control.
Um,
I think it will select both APNs. If you shift
Control Shift.
maybe
I don't know.
don't restart. So yeah, those two properties are it's one
One
two
legal.
APNs is one legal parcel described in lot line adjustment that recorded in 2000 in 1990, sorry. So that's
So we have them separately on the agenda today. Do we need to reassess how we are discussing this item today?
depends a lot on the applicant's intention.
So, Alex, what you're saying, so this is parcel 4, so parcel 14, parcel 11, you're saying those two is one,
It's a
or one, it's
parcel
one
two,
legal
yeah.
parcel.
Parcel 2 of a lot line adjustment.
Alex, this is Steve. If you have that lot line adjustment number, would you mind?
Yeah, just a
Might help
second,
me.
because there's a record survey that recorded that lot line adjustment.
Okay, I could probably look that up. Thanks.
So, yeah, so while Alex is looking up that information, I guess maybe we'll also ask council in terms of, so I think based on the information from the surveyor that those two assessors parcels is represent one legal parcel for uniform role purposes, you couldn't have a legal parcel in two separate contracts as they're presented today. And so I think that would, I guess,
Council, what do you recommend? Do you recommend that we discuss today, or would that present an issue because of the way it's listed on the agenda?
Can discuss the merits of it today. I think we need to resolve the APN issue before final approval, but you could approve up to that point, get everything kind of in order so that if they do have to come back, it's a
Okay,
de minimis kind of
I see.
for just a final approval on the correct APN.
Okay.
Contract straight.
So it's okay to discuss just kind of, we have to do both 2 and 3 together. So we'll kind of maybe get at least a general idea of what's being proposed by the applicant. And maybe we only have to probably continue the item.
Just to deal with the technical aspect.
Yes,
of the APN.
I see.
Project itself, I think you can discuss and
Okay,
make a decision on
okay,
APNs.
thank you. Any other questions about,
Yeah, the case number is 1988 19. Lot line adjustment 88 LLA 19.
18 LLA 19?
Sorry, 88 LA 19.
Okay, so, Steve, did you hear that?
Yes,
he was-
thanks. I
okay,
found
he's
it on the surveyor.
okay. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I found it on the surveyor's web, their map application online.
Okay, terrific. So we may have some, maybe to address a little further the outlines of the APNs and what's a legal parcel, which one's not. But for now, we do have people here who can at least represent the proposal and tell us a little bit about the property. So unless we want to talk more about the parcel outline or the LLA, should we get a little more information about the property itself?
Certainly, I think we can do that.
Okay.
I think based on this information, it sounds like if in fact that's the case, that we would need to be only looking at one contract versus two, that all of these properties, because that legal parcel for parcel APN 14 and 11 represent the bulk of, the property here. And since it's one legal parcel, it needs to be in the same contract. And so I think that's a consideration for both Mr. Nolan's to review the information from the survey and work with Mr. Connor, your planner, to confirm and verify that. But I think the outcome, if that is all correct, is that you probably need to kind of convert this into, if you still want to move forward with ag preserve contract, it would need to have likely all of these properties, assessor parcels, into a single contract application rather than the two separate. So I think procedurally, that's the way I think we would be moving towards. So I don't know that, whether or not there's merits. I mean, it's an interesting properties, both in terms of the history and the large extent of the operations and the ag history. And we certainly could receive that information, but I don't know if that's going to be relevant if where we're moving towards is likely a reconfiguration of the application for new contract.
Yeah, and also just way the uniform rules are structured is you're going to have more restrictions on the property if it's one contract versus two contracts. So restrictions on development, and so that's something to consider too.
Yeah, so the APN 13 and 12 probably could be considered as standalone. Don't know about the zoning, but they probably would meet the requirements as separate contracts, and then 14 and 11 would be one.
Okay, so that's just another possibility. Mr. Joe Nolan up at the podium, what do you want to just give us a very brief, maybe what you were going to talk about today? Is it about the how the ranch is operated, or? Yeah, and it's on when the light's on.
Yeah, Joe Nolan from Nolan West. It's a cattle ranch. I was here to answer questions that maybe my office was.
Okay. Yeah. Just kind of thinking about just the sudden change in how this might look. I'm thinking that one, we're going to need to continue this item. And that the applicant is going to need to work with our planner, Steve Connor, to try and come to maybe a restructuring of the application or reapply. I don't know how that works specifically, but I'm just thinking that although, like what David was saying, when we start changing the lines and the boundaries of what the proposal is, it can really affect, the committee, decision. And I just think it wouldn't be the best use of time. If we hear a bunch of information based on one proposal and it's going to get completely restructured. So I just thinking about most efficient use of everyone's time. Steve, did you have any input on this? What do you think from the planning perspective?
I think it's probably fine. It could be as easy as just dropping one application case number and just they'll all be, typically we can change the project description on our cases, like, whenever those constantly change. So that's not a problem. We could just add everything into one description on one case number.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think that part would be,
Okay.
wouldn't be overly complex.
Okay. I think one thing we could use for the resubmittal is a map of showing the entirety of the proposed ag preserve contract. That would be helpful.
Okay, we could certainly ask for that.
Yep, and where the grazing land is, and just a graphic depiction of that really helps. Because it sounds like it's precluding any, I don't know how, that was one question I had for planning was when there's a conservation easement involved with this, it's a private party agreement. I know we have limits on how much we consider regarding those private party arrangements. But if there are restrictions against planting, then I would think we'd want to see at least where the proposed grazing areas are going to be.
I had that same question. I know they mentioned, Mr. Nolan mentioned 70 acres.
Yeah, and I guess just another question I had relating to that pursuing the conservation easement. Maybe this is for Glenn. I think in the past where we've seen Sergio, at least for the and I know I forget the tax code section, but in terms of the general layperson understanding for myself is that certain conservation easements can qualify and get the same tax benefit as if they were in ag preserve. So in some cases, there was no need to have an ag preserve contract if the conservation easement was essentially the benefit that they were getting was being received through that.
I think that's right. And it's just kind of a formal process on the ones that were approved and approved by the supervisors. So it went through that formal process. I know those were in the cases where they qualified in the absence of an ag preserve contract. They went through that formal process of being approved.
Oh, I see. So if they're seeking to be qualified as a standalone conservation easement and get that tax benefit, they have to kind of go through that conservation easement needs to get approved by the board
Yes.
for that tax to authorize that benefit. Okay. And so if properties have, I know some properties have partial conservation easements on part of an ag preserve contract, and aside from the tax agreement, that's something that can be worked out, I guess, separately. As far as ag preserve, do you see any issue having, if everything else looks like they would qualify for an ag preserve contract. Is there any concern of potentially having both a conservation easement and an ag preserve contract on
No,
the
I
same
don't think
property?
so.
Okay.
Yes, I just had one question maybe for you, Joe, of why maybe there was an east and a west in your original plan, as opposed to just considering everything together. And maybe that's not a appropriate question right now. I don't know, but it might help going forward as to understand why you maybe had
I
that.
think that's a fine question to ask.
Yeah.
This is Peter Nolan.
Yeah.
I don't really know why there would be multiple as opposed to a single ag preserve. I guess, you know, and to answer the question, the entire property is for cattle grazing. I mean, some of it's very marginal. It's mountainous, but there's when you look at, someone was asking what part of the property is used for grazing. It's, the answer is the entire 5,400 acres.
I think maybe my guess is, I know parcel 11 on the east is the only parcel with structures, the ones that are clustered in that area. And on the west, at least according to assessor records, there are no structures. It's all just land.
That's correct.
So maybe that is what created this east and west initial break. I don't know. But
This is Steve. I'd actually asked Wes Newth, the agent, that question, and that was his answer. He said they were advised that each ag preserve contract would provide a 2-acre building envelope and that 2 applications would be optimal to preserve flexibility, but they were open to discussing.
So they can back drop.
I was just going to say, are there any more questions from committee members? I think we're going to end up continuing this item to another meeting, but if we have any questions just in general, while we have both Mr. Nolan's here and the planner, that might be a good time to ask conservation easements, or I think we need to do a little bit, there needs to be a little bit more background work on the legal parcels, but we can certainly answer or ask some general questions to move this along. And any questions about the grazing lands or anything? Go ahead.
My question, as I read through the packet, it appeared to me that there were 2 farm worker residences on here, not a personal residence and a farm worker. And I think justification would need to be made on why 2 farm worker residences are needed for a cattle ranch. To me, I would want to know why that would be needed. The other question that I had is looking through the materials given, there were like 4 or 5 16-inch wells. And I don't know how that would fit with a cattle ranch either. So is there some other use for those? Some of those kinds of things I think need to be understood as it relates to a cattle ranch, which the purpose of this would be to get the Williamson Act.
Yeah, let me answer the second question first. Is the wells were put in by Kendall Jackson when they were going to develop vineyards, and their legacy wells, most of which are not in use. So they're not. The answer is they're not necessary for a cattle ranch, but they're there. They were dug by the last owner. And you do need a couple people to run cattle on 5,400 acres. So I don't understand the farm worker question. What usually it's not a single person that can handle a property of that magnitude. And they also handle our other ranches. We have ranches down the Lisos Canyon as well.
Okay, it would help, I think, help me as maybe the rest of the committee, the number of cattle that you will be running and what the responsibilities then would be to show that both of those residences are needed for that. And I'm not a rancher, but I work with a lot of ranchers, and the 5,400 acres is a sizable area, but yet I don't know of anybody that has 2 farm residences on their ranch to run that size of a ranch for cattle. That's
We
why
have
I'm
a total of 12,500 acres in this area that we run cattle on, and we rotate the cattle between the ranches.
Okay, saying that, well, then that's not part of just this application. So we need that further explanation. Help us. So,
Thank you, Royce. Yeah, I think going forward, that's definitely a standard, is to, whenever we have agricultural employee dwellings or farm employee dwellings, we ask for justification for that demonstrated need, what the duties are of those persons who are either the work they're doing on the property itself or for the owner on other properties. And I can't recall what the specifics are and the limits for planning development, if it has to be under the same contract, or if it can be, if it's Ag 2, can they have just another ranch by that owner that they can justify work off-site? So, but yeah, typically we do have justification and needs. So that would be something that I think would be helpful to have, is information on that, as well as the number of head of cattle, if this is cattle that are leased or if it's owned by the property owner. And then also fencing is another thing that we typically like to see, if there's any cattle fencing, and then on the property itself. So yeah, I agree with Royce.
Well, I'm sort of little, so what would the committee, what does the committee want us to come back with? Because it's a little bit unclear. So you basically
yes.
want a fencing map?
Yeah, I
You
think
wanna
what
know-
we're looking for is, so just from what I'm hearing today, we're gonna, and we can put this in our motion. Just to kind of, before we go to a motion, I just wanted to clarify. So I think what we need is perhaps a discussion between the family, the owners of the Nolans, and as well as the planner, decide and maybe work with the assessor's office and surveyor's office on what is the best proposal, if it's one contract or more than one contract. I don't know, just based on the legalities, and Alex can certainly assist you in that if he has any additional comments. That's one thing. And then when the application is proposed, so for the contract itself, we always prefer a map showing the entirety of the proposed AgPreserve contract, any sources of water that are used to secure water source for the agriculture on the property. We'd want to see where the grazing lands would be, fence lines for cattle, any existing development, any proposed development. I'm not hearing any, but we would need those that are proposed or existing, like the farm employee dwellings. We also ask for demonstrated need typically on those ag employee dwellings. What's the duties of those employees as it relate to the agriculture on the property? Those are all typically what we ask for. It's on the application and the supplemental form. Did I miss anything, committee members? Okay.
I think in the your planner can help you with all of those. I mean, a lot of that information that the chair mentioned can be just on a site plan with the aerial based site plan, and just, have labels and locations for the water troughs or water sources, and same thing with the structures and label those. And then, Mr. Nolan, I think you also mentioned, this is part of your larger agricultural operation, grazing operation on other lands in the vicinity. So as far as the information that the committee is requesting in terms of demonstrated need on the proposed contracted lands, I think there's sort of co-benefit that you're saying that those agricultural employees are providing for the larger grazing operation on other area lands. And so you could also, tell the story of how those ag employees are benefiting the other ag operations and their duties and responsibilities. And I do have some just separate questions, maybe just in terms of how we deal with this as a continuance, but I don't have any more questions for the owners.
Yeah, thank you, David. That's an important point because you were saying that the employees don't just work on this property, but yeah, any other properties that you own or operate, we would want to know how that is the benefit and how that ties into this contract. And I'm not as familiar with the conservation easements. I've had only a handful of little experience on those and how they pertain to a new ag preserve contract. And it sounds like this conservation easement has some specific restrictions. So I would just want to understand, visually, if I'm looking at a map, how much area, how much acreage is there for the agriculture? Because that's what is qualifying you for a contract, is the grazing lands, as I understand it. So no production agriculture of any kind, no irrigated agriculture. It sounds like that's going to be precluded on this property, so it will be strictly grazing land. So I would just want to know, like, how much area would there be available for agriculture on the property? Because you are qualifying for the contract under the cattle, using the cattle.
Yeah, I'm confused because it's 100%. Other than the buildings, the entirety of the ranch is used for grazing and nothing else. And then 70 of those acres, 70 out of 5,400, were allowed to plant hay.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful to have that on that site plan, just to show us like where can you have that.
The 70 so you want a map of the entire place, and we say this is all for grazing, or how would it work? I'm a little confused.
I guess what I'm saying is if there's any areas that are restricted from the grazing lands, and I don't know enough about your.
There are none.
Okay. I thought I heard that there were some areas that were restricted. Maybe it's just for the production agriculture then. Is that correct?
The entire property is restricted from any cultivation except for 70 except for 70 acres. The entirety of the property is a cattle ranch, and that's all we can do.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I guess there wouldn't be any kind of, from what you're telling me today, it doesn't sound like there'd be any graphic depiction of that on a site plan, but maybe more of a narrative explaining that. And maybe that was already provided adequately.
Well, I think, honestly, I'm a little confused because in going through the process, we've made that pretty clear from the beginning.
So maybe just I can.
Yeah.
How I think what the chair was looking at, that this is the first time our committee heard that there was the conservation easement component. And so the question was, if the conservation easement had restrictions that would affect the agriculture that qualifies for the ag preserve, that would be a concern. I think what you've said is that the conservation easement isn't having any restrictions on the cattle operation of where you can graze, but it does have some limitations for areas where you could do some hay or some other ground disturbing ag cultivation. If there's I'm assuming if there's acreage, it could be mapped with the polygon. If that's the case, you could always add that polygon of the 70 acres of where there could be potential future hay production. But I think that from our concern, and I think you've stated that there isn't any physical restrictions in terms of the areas for the grazing operation, then that's good to know. But that was really just because it was new information to us today, we needed to clarify that point.
Are there areas that are restricted from grazing because of the California tiger salamander?
No,
No, okay,
none whatsoever.
okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, David. All right, so any other, before I go further, I just wanted to double check or check if there's anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this item.
Madam Chair, we have no requests to speak, nobody in the attendees column online, or nobody in the room. No requests
Okay,
to speak.
very good, thank you. All right, so anything else you wanted to add, either Joe Nolan here or Mr. Nolan online? Or from the planner, because I was going to take it back to the committee, see if there's any other questions and we can craft our motion. Okay,
So one question, so I think we're going to have a continuance of some
Yes.
sort.
yes,
So obviously there needs to be some consideration. Is this going to be repackaged into one application for a single ag preserve contract? And then there's some, if that's the case, then you need to update the maps based on the information that we
right.
requested. So the timing of the continuance is my
Mhm.
question. And this, I think, is both for Mr. Nolan's and Steve. Can all of this be resolved and accomplished with a 1-month continuance? So that would be our July 11th meeting, relatively short notice. Or if you think you might need additional time, we could then continue it to the August Ag Preserve meeting.
And typically, just wanted to add, we have, we request that items are obtained by hearing support. Is it 2 weeks prior to the meeting? 2 weeks prior to the hearing date, so that, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but that July 11th meeting, when would you need your items?
That would be the 27th.
So the 27th. And how about if they needed an additional month? So for the August, when is the August meeting?
The August meeting is August 8th, Thursday. So we would need the materials for that hearing, the 26th of July. 25th of July.
25th of July, okay. Any input from the Mr. Nolan or Steve, the planner?
I don't believe I have any input. I guess it all depends on which direction this takes. Sounds like it might be moving toward one contract, but I'm not sure.
Okay, perhaps I could recommend then maybe we do the one further out in August, and that way it gives you a little bit more time, some flexibility to reconsider or to reconfigure your proposal.
Hi, this is Wes Newth, the agent. I'm confident that we can get this together by the June 27th deadline. So in my view, I think that the July meeting is eminently doable, and would work with Steve and the Nolans to get it done in advance of that 27th deadline for the July meeting.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you wanted to do it for the July 11th meeting. Okay? And that would mean, just to be clear, that you would need to turn in any materials to hearing support by June 28th.
That's correct. I think that's
Okay.
doable from our end.
Very good.
I think before we do the official motion, I
Yes.
think what we will be doing, we'll be continuing both item 2 and 3 to that
Yes.
date. And I think, Steve, for the the July agenda, if the direction is to consolidate and just have one contract, I think it would be prudent to have a third new description for this new contract. I mean, it may be the same contract number, but the physical description is going to be different in the agenda. So I think that would be a new item that maybe council can weigh in on this. I think it might be easier to handle it that way, is that we have these 2 continued items and then a new item with the new project description for the contract request. And that way we can take it, if we take action on the contract, we can just drop the continuances for the other 2.
Withdraw the previous.
Right.
If that's the route they choose.
Right.
It gives you freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for agenda management. Okay.
Does
So we
that make
would-
sense, Steve?
Chair, if it's okay, this is Peter Nolan.
Yes.
Just because I'm going to be away on the 11th, let's do August and let's not try
Okay.
to rush it.
Oh, okay, sure, no problem. If we did the August, it would be the August 8th meeting, and that would mean that we would need all the items to hearing support by July 26th. Okay, so thank you, David, for that. So what we're talking about is we would continue the 2 items here today, 2 and 3, and then also have those would be under continued items for the August meeting. And then for the, have a third new item or new item listed on that August meeting that would actually be the new description going forward. And that might actually be 2 items too, if it comes out that they want to propose 2 new contracts. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, if
Okay.
there's anything
Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
new or different, it probably should be treated as if the contracts are as described or different than they are today.
Yes.
They probably should be listed as a
Okay.
new item.
And any questions about that, Steve? As the planner?
No, I understand that. That makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Okay, so just before we make an agenda or a motion, wanted to see, so we are going to make a motion. We would be first continuing just item 2 and 3. And then each of those, would they just be be the same motion essentially? Asking for the same information? Or how would we craft or write in our request for the additional information that we talked about? For example, the information about the farm employee dwelling and the duties, how would we structure that?
I think it can be in the same motion. We just,
Okay.
it would be part 2 of our statement for the motion. Do you want me to take a stab at it?
Sure, that would be appreciated.
So I'd make a motion that the committee continue item number 2 and number 3 to our August APAC meeting to provide an opportunity for the applicant to consider revising the new ag preserve contract proposal. With that new contract proposal, the APAC was requesting the applicant include information, site planning information as described today regarding the contract, site plan with the contract boundary on an aerial photo base, including location of water sources, fencing to support the cattle operation, location of any buildings and structures and labeling of that information, and then describing the demonstrated need for the ag employees on site and providing a list of their duties and responsibilities, not only on the proposed ag preserve contract, but for other cattle operations of the owner within the vicinity. Anything else?
Hit pause. Any other additions to that motion? I know it was complex. Okay. I second the motion.
We have a first and a second. I'll do a roll call. Royce Larson,
Aye.
Alex, David Lackey,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
Glenn Narr.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And we will provide you with that motion and direction, both Mr. Nolan's as well as the planner. And we will see you in August. All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Do we need to make a second motion for item number 3? Or how does that?
I did my motion.
Oh, did you make a motion to come? Okay. Okay. Good. That takes us to item number 4. That is for TNTG Ranch LLC. This is for an ag employee dwelling, an addition. And this is regarding contract number 98AP002, and our planner is Sam Broderson. And considering the request for from Gildred Stewart Ranches Incorporated, and Brett Jones is the agent on that. I think I saw Brett's name up there earlier today, yes. And is Sam Broderson, the planner, here as well?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, very
Thanks.
good, thank you. I can't always see the names, thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay.
Brett Jones here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we have the site plan pulled up.
Great.
Okay, we want to give us an overview of what you're interested in doing?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a 63-acre parcel on Refugio Road, actually bisected by Refugio Road, just south of the river. And you'll see in the upper left corner there is the project in question. It's an existing ag employee dwelling that was built in the early 50s and is in need of repair and an addition that unfortunately was started without a permit and was red tagged. And so we're coming forward trying to get permits for the addition to the ag employee dwelling. The property recently, I believe in 21, transferred over from row crops to grapes. And you'll see on the aerial there, it's about 33 acres of grapes now under production. The well is there's a number of wells, but the well for the house is located in the river. It's a offsite well, and it also serves the reservoir that you see there for frost protection and the irrigation. I believe I submitted some well information as well. The existing property is developed there on the east side of Refugio with the primary dwelling and a guest house and a detached garage. And you'll see that envelope area at the 1.81 acres. And I think I believe that's everything. I submitted quite a few things. The plantings, trellis costs, all the stuff that you'll see back in, I believe that was 21. But you see on this map that it's all developed now with the grapes.
Thank you very much for that overview, Brett. Sam, did you have anything to add to the presentation that you think the committee should know?
Nothing additional at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? Okay.
Yes, hi, this is Glenn. Brett, you mentioned 33 acres of grapes. Can you tell us when those were planted?
I believe those were planted in 22, 23.
Okay, so I know the current owner transfer date was 2022, so it was sometime after, I mean, I guess later in that year after they purchased the property. So I'm from the assessor's office. I know on this property, we have not received the annual questionnaire since the new owner purchased the property. So that would have been both the 23 and 24 Williamson Act questionnaire.
Okay.
So I know that's something that when items come up, we try to make it a point to say that that's important information. In this case, you can see why. I'm not sure our records reflect the grape plantings. So this is something that, you know, I will bring along to the appraiser on this parcel. So that's it.
Understood. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, normally I check that. I think in this case I forgot to ask them, and it's been under the same family ownership for years and years and years. I believe that the name ownership transferred. It must have been in 22 or 23 with surviving children, with the original owners passing away. But I'll make sure that we get those questionnaires turned around and back into your office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brett. And thank you for bringing that up very much.
Yeah, just to follow up on that transfer, Brett, do you know if the new ownership has assumed the Ag Preserve contract, if they applied for assumption?
David, excellent question. I don't believe so.
Okay, so that would be something that we would want to note as well.
Sure.
And then Brett, just looking at the map that you provided that we have up on screen and sort of the hatching. Hatching seems to be very at a gross scale. Like particularly there's an area below the house that shows hatching, but I don't think there's grapes there in that in a kind of tan little teardrop area. Also similarly, you know, the hatching covers the roads. Typically when we're looking at calculations for the planted acreage, it's just the vines and the rows, excluding any ag roads that may intersect. I don't know, you know, if your calculation, your stated acreage calculation is based on this kind of very general hatching pattern, or is it the actual planted acreage?
David, I'll have to ask the architect who did the site plan for me, Sadat here, because I don't know the answer to that. If he did like a gross and included those, or if it was just based on the planting.
Right. Yeah, and similarly, kind of that northeast corner of the hatching area. At least my aerial photo doesn't show that there's vineyards there. And that's, I think, relevant when we're looking at, you know, for prime land, you have to have 50% planted. So we want to make sure that, because these obviously are areas, if the acreage is below the 50%, there are areas that potentially could be brought into production. So I think we need to get that more accurate calculation and depiction.
Okay.
And while I'm still on sort of the gross calculations, I did 3 different measurements of what I thought was the non-ag development envelope, and even at a very conservative level, the very conservative level was well over 2 acres. Your hatching, the architect provided here, says 1.18 acres. And so I'm having difficulty with the discrepancies between the calculations. And so I'd just raise that as an issue for now.
Okay, you said 1.18 at 1.81, but I'll clarify that as well with him.
So that's what's shown as the water reservoir. Is that a water reservoir that's in support of the newly planted? I know it's been there for a while, obviously, but is it being characterized as a water reservoir in support of the planted grapes?
Cross protection, yes.
And so are there pumps and irrigation from that reservoir to the areas for the grapes for the frost protection? Or is that?
I believe so. I'll make sure that is on the map.
Okay.
But you're right, that reservoir was in well before the grapes were there.
Right.
Thank you, David. Anything else from committee members? Any questions or thoughts at this point? We're looking at probably a continuance I've got 5 different items at this point, but.
Yeah,
anything
just
else?
more just informational, just because this is one of those prime contracts
Sure.
that's less than kind of the break point of 66
Yep.
acres. So it's actually the maximum allowed for the non-ag envelope is 1.88 acres.
Yeah, that's
That's
it,
the
2 acres or
3%.
3%. So the uniform rules say 2 acres or 3%, whichever is smaller. In this case, it is smaller, so it's the 1.88. Okay, and I have the items listed so far is a more accurate map, site plan showing the hatched area, not including things like roads. And there's some areas that are showing in calculation that are in question. So get a revised area depicting the hashed areas that are agriculture and, omitting any areas that are included that wouldn't be cultivated or included in that 50% production ag area, because we're talking about a prime contract. And then also there's that envelope, would be 1.88 acres, but when Dave was saying he was looking through at the amount, it looked like it was over that. So get that tightened up on the site plan. And also questionnaire for the assessor's office. Those need to be completed for at least, I heard, 2 years.
Well, the current year.
Current year. Okay. And then even before that, just go through and looks like it may not have filed an assumption for the contract back when the ownership changed. So that would need to occur as well. And maybe they didn't get the questionnaire because it was going to the previous ownership. Maybe it wasn't assumed properly. Yeah. And then also the water reservoir confirm presence of infrastructure that would tie it to the ag operation and being used as frost protection pond. Okay. Anything else from committee members? Okay. I'm gonna, go ahead, David.
Just thinking about. Sorry. Going back to the development, the request is for this ag employee dwelling addition. And it might have been, sorry, I didn't look at every item in the packet, so it might already be there, but is there information on the list of duties and responsibilities for the ag employee, particularly since the ag has changed on the property? If that isn't, that I would just add that to the continuance list. Just to include it, if it's not already in the packet, for the ag employee dwelling, for the ag employee, provide a list of duties and responsibilities in support of the agriculture and the contract.
Thank you, David. Anything, Alex? You had your microphone on? No? Okay. Let me ask, before we make a motion, given the list of items that we have so far, both from the perspective of the planner and the agent, Brett, what are we looking at? Do you think you could get this completed for the next month, or would you like to continue for 2 months?
I would like to try for the July meeting. I know I've got
Okay.
other items on that, so I'd
Sure.
like to try to make that.
And then so that, to clarify, that meeting is, would be the July 11th meeting, and we would need items to hearing support by, that would be June 28th. Sound reasonable? Okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to work with the architect, and if I'll probably know early next week if that's not gonna work, and then I'll let Sam know. that we'll
okay,
need to push to August.
okay. And what we ask is if you can attend that meeting to continue the item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be on that meeting.
Okay. And then also wanted to see if there's any public comment on this item.
We have nobody signed up to speak for this item, nobody in the attendees, and nobody attending in person. So no public comment.
Thank you, and close public comment. See, so I think we're looking at ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we continue the item to the July APEC meeting to provide time for the applicant to provide the additional information that we've listed today. I don't think we have to go through the whole list, or do we?
I would put it on the agenda. Or on the minute, in the motion, yes. To include,
Okay, do
I have a
you
little-
want to do a joint? Do you want to list that as part of my motion?
yes, in the motion, continue the item to the July meeting. Request to give the applicant more time to provide a site plan with more accurate depiction of the production ag areas and the non-agricultural development envelope areas. To revise calculations for those planted acreage as well as the non-ag area as needed. Number 3, submit a questionnaire, annual questionnaire to the assessor's office. 4, submit an assumption contract as needed for the transfer of ownership. 5, provide a narrative confirming the infrastructure between the water reservoir and how it supports the agricultural operation on the property. And lastly, a list, number 6, of the ag employee dwelling list of duties, a demonstrated need for the ag employee dwelling. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. I'll do a roll call. Royce Larson.
Aye.
Alex. David Lackey.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
And Glenn Narr.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And we will see you in July. Okay. Takes us to item number 6. This is also this is for an ag employee dwelling for contract number 12
Sorry,
AP.
Stephanie, it's number 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, and that is you as well, Mr. Jones. Thank you. Item number 5, Landon Equestrian Facility. This is for Ag Preserve Contract 96 AP5, and the same planner is Steve Connor. And we have Mr. Jones here as well to provide us an overview with this proposal.
Good morning again. This is a just under 51 acre parcel off of Baseline that has a couple different iterations over the years. It was a horse ranch, and then equestrian facility, and then moved into olives, and then the property sold. Actually twice, I think. I've worked for 2 different clients in the last 3 years, and the new owner is an equestrian, so it's back to an equestrian facility. The majority of the olives have been removed from the property, and we are proposing today a large ag equipment garage for large trucks and trailers and ag equipment. There we go. You'll see the location for that garage in the northwest corner there. Majority of the other development is in the southeast corner. They are currently in process on completing the irrigated pasture. And you'll see on this site there were 3 ag employee dwellings that were approved back in the day with a conditional use permit. 1 has been removed, so there are 2 ag employee dwellings on site. I did send in 3 W-2s for the ag employees that are living in those 2 structures. Part of the description talks about a workshop that we were a little unclear whether it had previously been approved, but I think Steve and I have landed that it was approved before. So I think the only other bit of information is the location of the equipment storage building and garage is next to that western property line because the owner also owns the property directly to the west, which is also a equestrian facility. And the location of the garage trailer storage will work for both properties in this proposed location. You will see on the map you're looking at here, we've got a little pin for proposed arena. We will be coming back for a large covered arena, but that in itself is triggering a development plan. So we have not submitted for that. It does show on this map, but we are not in process on that at this time. That'll happen sometime later this year or next year when we get those drawings prepared to submit. Let's see what else. You'll see on the map the existing well, the reservoir, and the other horse barns. That's everything. I hopefully on this one, I believe I did do an assumption contract and I helped the owner with the questionnaire. So hopefully, Glenn, you have those.
Yes, we do have the questionnaire. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Brett, just on this map, in your calculations at the bottom, I think under D, the total area of land covered by all permanent improvements shall not exceed 20% of the premises or 20 acres. I'm sure you're taking into account this proposed covered arena and future ability to still meet that. Not that that's part of the agenda, but okay.
Yeah, it's about an acre, so we'll still be well under. But yes, I did do that early on just to make sure I didn't have any issues in the future.
Right.
Thank you.
And then just a question on this map, that sort of central area that's not shaded by the irrigated pasture, is that currently or going to be put into some other type of ag production, or how is that going to be used?
Actually, I texted the owner yesterday because I was a little unclear because they had previously talked about alfalfa, but it sounds like it will be orchard hay as well, which I guess my understanding is that considered irrigated pasture, so that could be included as well. But at this point, they haven't started that process.
What type of hay did you say?
Orchard hay.
And that's irrigated?
That is irrigated, yes.
And it's not for commercial sale, it's just for the horses?
That I don't know. I looked it up a little bit yesterday with some research. It can be clipped for hay, but because he's got the 2 properties, I don't believe they sell any.
Royce, did you have, from UC Cooperative Extension, did you have any comments on the planting of orchard hay versus alfalfa, and can that also be used for the horses?
Grass is a good feed, and I see no issue with that. You can cut and bale it and people do that, so.
And I'm sorry, Brett, did you say you needed to get clarification if that orchard hay would be used and consumed by the horses on the property or sold for, or you needed clarification? I wasn't
Yeah,
clear.
I personally, I don't think I need clarification. It's a question for you guys. I don't believe he sells it just because of his operation on both properties.
I mean, it sounds like with your map right now, well, I guess maybe just a clarification. You said that the areas in the light green that you're identifying as irrigated pasture is about to be completed and being brought into in terms of the irrigation lines, or is that has that been completed? Is there a timeline of when all of the irrigation for those pastures will be established?
Yeah, the location, let's say this left northwest corner is not completed. The other ones are completed, and I believe they're actually working in the big field as well. Steve may be able to attest to that. I believe I saw irrigation out there when Steve and I did the site visit, but the northwest corner won't be completed until we've done the grading for this project. So I would imagine we're in for the grading and the building permit now, so I would imagine it would be later this year before that would be completed. And the intent was that would make up the 20 acres of irrigated pasture, which doesn't include the big field in the middle. So, you know, with that and the information I found out yesterday, we'll be well over the 20.
Do you have like a schematic or something showing where those irrigation lines are going to be going to those fields and from the well? I raise that issue because many times when in the past, when we've looked at irrigated pasture, it's a point in time and the landowner, you know, if we don't look at the infrastructure to support it, there's no assurance that it's going to be continued to be in irrigated pasture in the future. And so it sounds like obviously there's intent, but I don't, it's sort of like the providing a, you know, purchase order or something for planting vineyards. If you've got a irrigation plan that shows the location of that infrastructure and the well that's serving that, I think that would go a long way to demonstrate that that's going to happen because it's not currently completed.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think to ask for a Pacific Ag irrigation plan, but I will ask the owner if they have something like that. I know when Steve and I were on site, they were putting in the irrigation in that big field, so I would imagine they have some sort of mapping. I didn't think to ask for that.
This is Stephanie with the Ag Department. I wanted to go back to that thread we talked about with the orchard grass. So that would be what that larger field is in the center, correct?
That was my understanding. That
Okay.
is my understanding based on a text from the owner yesterday.
Okay.
It's not shown on here because I wasn't sure at the time and didn't understand the concern with alfalfa and wasn't sure what they were putting in. So I left it off knowing that the other was orchard grass that I've shown here under irrigated pasture.
Okay. So the larger area there that shows in the center is where the orchard grass would go, correct?
Additional orchard grass, yes.
Yes, okay. The areas in green are depicting also orchard grass, or perhaps that's the alfalfa?
No, it's my understanding that is orchard grass.
Okay. And the amount of acreage in the green area now is how much again?
I believe it's a little over 20 acres.
Okay, so that would qualify you, and therefore would we need, I guess, back to the committee member question, would we need Mr. Jones to clarify with the owner whether or not there is the sale of orchard grass, the non-green area? Would we need him to ask that if he's qualifying for the other pieces that are in green? And if we get that additional level of assurance about the irrigation, that it's, that it's not going to go away once seasonally.
I mean, I think since we're likely to continue this, to request that
Yeah.
additional information for the irrigation plan. I don't think it's necessary that they have to depict that
Mhm.
area, as long as what's being depicted for meeting the minimum 20 acres
Mhm.
also has the infrastructure to serve it.
Yeah,
I think that's the most.
okay. Very good. And the reservoir on the property, will that stay? Because that was probably put in as a feature for the vineyard, since this is changing, the ag on the property. Is that just going to stay as a reservoir, or what are your thoughts on that, Brett?
It was never vineyard. It was originally was a horse operation. So I'm not sure what the reservoir was used for. Then it went to olives.
Yes,
And
thank
now
you.
now it's back to equestrian. I will find out. I would imagine they use it as part of the operation.
Mm-hmm.
There is no plan to get rid of it. And I should have said I did not include a personal use area because there's really no personal use on this property. So to answer the question on the reservoir, as I look into the irrigation infrastructure, I'll just clarify, is the reservoir used as part of that? And I suppose the question to you all is, if it's not, would we just qualify that as personal use? Because again, it's to remain.
This is Steve, the planner. I'll chime in. Brett, if we could dig up whether there were any grading permits for that reservoir, that might be handy just to have for permit history. I'll check into it too.
Will do.
So your question about whether, if it's not used for the ag, should it be for personal use? I'm not hearing a great concern from the committee, but I think the next step might be just to ask if it's part of that whole support of the ag operation or not for water.
Understood.
Yeah.
No, I just was wondering the capacity of the well, maybe reservoir is something to do with the capacity.
Did you hear that, Brett?
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else for us, Brett, or from Steve, our planner? Anything else you'd like to add? Okay, hearing none. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
We have received no request to speak for this item, and we have nobody in the attendees column.
Thank you. And if I recall, you said you're trying to come back in July 11th. Is that correct?
Yeah. You're gonna see a lot of me on July 11th.
You still want to keep July, or do you want to push it to August?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to get back.
Okay. Keep July. Okay. Very good. Any other questions from committee members, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'll take a stab.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to continue this item to July 11th meeting to allow the applicant to provide additional information regarding the irrigation infrastructure on the site. And I believe that's all we need.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll do a roll call. Royce Larson,
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and Glenn Kennard.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll see this item back on July 11th. That takes us to item number 6.
Chair,
Oh, yes.
do we have a couple minute break?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. We're gonna have a couple minute break. It is now 10:44. Can we come back at 10:50? Okay, we're back to the Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee, and thank you for joining us again. We are going to be starting back on our next item. It's 10:50 a.m. Thank you for joining us. So this is the Agricultural Employee Dwelling, item number 6. Contract number 12 AP 014, and Brett Jones is our agent, or is the agent representing the project, and our planner is Veronica King, County Planner. So I don't know if Veronica is able to join us, and hopefully we have Brett back online. But if we could get an overview of the ag employee dwelling.
Sure. Good morning again. I did meet with Veronica. It looks like she's on the other day, did a quick little site visit. So this parcel is 500 acres and was made up of 3 parcels that were split back in the 2000s, and all 3 parcels under the same ownership. There were 2 ag employee dwellings on this property, one built in the 20s, one built in the 40s, that we did a historical report. They were in disrepair, needed to be remodeled. We did a historical report and actually have demolished them recently. So we're coming in now to replace those 2 with one main residence and one ag employee dwelling that also has within it a ranch office. This parcel is primarily used for under a cattle lease, and I provided that information. A lot of the vineyard operations, some of the storage and equipment, and this is kind of the entry to all 3 parcels. This location is used for all 3 parcels. There's I think about maybe 130 acres in great production to the north of parcel 1 on parcels 2 and 3. In the photo site plan exhibit, you'll see the well for the stock water, and then the stock waterers. I believe those are shown on the other site plan. It's like a Google Earth. It might be the exhibit next to that. Yeah, there we go. So you'll see just below the cursor is I believe a tank, and then to the southeast is the well, and then you'll see a few stock waterers that are identified. And then all the buildings are labeled with their current uses.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Anything from the planner to add?
Hi.
Hi, Veronica.
Veronica again. I don't have anything to add. That was a good overview, but I'm available for any questions. I did a site visit yesterday. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any questions from committee members? Clarifications? Okay. Glenn, go ahead.
Hi, Brett, this is Glenn. Did you say the existing employee dwellings were already demolished?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And so it looks like the outline of where they were is still showing there, right? That's for.
Yeah, if you can zoom in there, you'll see. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, it's showing. Yeah, in this map, they were just demolished. I think last month we got a demo permit and everything, and I think it was last month. So this was obviously taken prior to that.
Oh, I see. The squares are showing the new dwellings right above where the existing ones were.
Yeah,
Yeah,
E
the
is
one-
the demolished.
Yeah, the other one is right on top of where the other one was, which is the main residence one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sorry, where, I didn't see, I can't see the arrow for the new main is in the upper left.
That's the new farm employee is the upper left, right above the red tiled roof one.
Right, and then the
Just
new
to the
main.
right of that is where the old ag employee dwelling is, and that will be the new main residence.
Oh, I see, the arrow drops down there, I couldn't see it, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden in dark there.
Right, so they really will be on top of the old footprints,
The other one it's a little bit north of the.
just north, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see, I'm sorry, you're right, okay, thank you.
Well, okay, well, committee members are looking at the exhibits. Just wanted to open this for public comment, see if there's anybody that would like to make a comment on this project.
If anybody in the audience would like to make a public comment on this item, please fill out a speaker slip. Seeing none, when we have nobody online.
Okay, thank you. Closing public comment.
So just either Glenn or Brett on the Williamson Act questionnaire, do we have the most recent one submitted, or is that still is that outstanding?
I believe they have. I believe they have submitted it. I didn't write a note that it was missing, so I think we're in good shape.
Good.
And Royce, go ahead.
For, ag employee dwelling, do we need the list of duties that would attend to show the need for it?
Typically, yes, if it's not included in the packet already. Did you hear that, Brett?
I could not hear Royce.
Okay, go ahead, Royce.
Usually we need to see the list of duties for the agriculture employee, and I don't see it in our packet, so.
Yeah, I don't think I did one. You know, I don't know what to say besides they've historically been. I know I won't even say anything. Okay, understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments from committee members, questions? Okay, so it looks like we do have one, at least one outstanding item. Veronica, was there anything provided? It didn't sound like you did, Brett, but anything you can speak to? What does the person do?
I don't have any information.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Veronica. I did
No,
not
go ahead.
provide anything because the ag employees, the dwellings are gone. There'll be one employee. There's 1,000 acres of ag operations, and the employee will be doing numerous. They have numbers of employees that will be working on site. Obviously, the house is not there, so I can certainly provide a narrative. I was hoping we could, get approval today, and but I understand where you're going.
Mm-hmm. For consistency, from my perspective, I think we would want that before we made a motion, as opposed to make it contingent upon approval. What are your thoughts, committee members?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was thinking, well, can we have it, the planner verify the information? But I'm thinking, since this application is for a new
Yes. Mm-hmm.
farm employee dwelling, we want to confirm that those duties align with the application request.
Yes.
If it was if those were still existing
Mhm.
former employee dwellings and they've been operating and doing ag duties, I may have been more inclined to, that the planner could verify that, and not need to have a continuance. But I think for consistency, I would agree that we'd want that information. And
Any thoughts from Alex or Glenn? No. Okay. Okay, so Brett, just wanted to check in with you, given that, how do you feel being able to meet that request? Would you be able to come back to the July 11th meeting?
Yes.
By that, okay. Would someone like to make a motion on this item?
make a motion that we continue this item to the July APAC meeting to provide opportunity for the applicant to provide information on demonstrated need for the new ag employee dwelling and a list of duties and responsibilities for that ag employee in support of the agriculture on the premises.
I will second.
We got a second roll call, please.
Okay, I'll do roll call. Royce Larson,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
and Glenn Kennard.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
David, with your with the motion, when you say on premises, it is true that the ag employee can also work on neighboring parcels, correct, with contiguous ownership? Is that correct?
I mean, as far as the uniform rules and ag employees, the first kind of tier is looking at the demonstrated need on the ag preserve contract itself. And then I think the second tier is looking at other responsibilities, particularly if there's other lands that the ag employee is working on of the same owner in the vicinity. And obviously the permit for the ag employee dwelling allows for working on other agricultural properties. But for uniform roles, yeah, Brett, you're correct that the primary emphasis is first demonstrating the need on the contracted lands where that ag employee dwelling is being located.
Okay. I'll make sure my narrative includes, all three, but
Yeah, I think it's helpful to paint the entire picture, but I mean, I think the committee would be looking at, is there principally sufficient work on the contracted land for the agriculture for this, or is it just very minimal? And that would be, and most of their work is off the premises.
understood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that question. Okay, anything else on this one? All right. I think we're done, and we'll look forward to you in July. Seeing you in July. You got a lot to do, Brett. All right, thank you very much. And that brings us to item number 7, which is Slippery Rock Ranch, the new ag barn. This is for animal enclosures and a veterinarian station. Ag Preserve contract number is 12AP003. And we have both, Kevin De Los Santos is listed as our county planner. And we also have Mark Lloyd, who's here with us today in person. And he is representing the agent, or he's the agent representing the owner of Slippery Rock Ranch, LLC. And we have a number of items provided in our packet for us, but why don't we go ahead and get an overview from Mr. Lloyd, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and honorable committee members. My name is Mark Lloyd, representing the applicant. We have a drawing up here. I think the aerial photo might have got washed out of it. But we can start here. So this shows existing structures over the property. There's a main house, there's ag employee dwellings, there's a whole list there. The The development that is before you today is that L-shaped building. I believe it's numbered 19. They're sort of in the middle of the riparian RCP habitat area from the Goleta Community Plan. So that is a 5,250 square foot concrete tilt-up garage building, workshop building for vehicle and equipment storage, repair, and ongoing tool storage, use, sharpening, all the things that go with a large avocado cultivation operation. Just to the north of that, I can't read what building number it is. I think it's 18. That is a previously approved hay barn that we are proposing to relocate. And if you can go to the north of the drawing or page it down there, you can see that it's being relocated up in that area. The reason it's being relocated is that we need to get access to the proposed barn area. There's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 animal barns and related structures. 5 of those are enclosed animal barns and pens, and then they have a fenced grazing area around them. And then the one that is noted as 24, that is sort of to the right side, that it's a covered veterinarian station. Actually, it's an exempt structure, but I'm going to get it permitted anyway as part of this land use permit. So that's a veterinarian station for veterinarian care of the animals that are in these barns. I don't know if we have access to the site photos or not. Yeah, so this is the site of which the 5,250 square foot building would go. It was a previous agricultural operation vehicle area. There was a 8 by 40 foot steel containers that are there have been moved elsewhere, and so we're basically using this previously disturbed area for the barn site. You can see it's all flat, doesn't need any grading, et cetera, et cetera. Those are avocado orchards all around it, and then the sycamore trees you see in the background is the riparian corridor area. And then if you can just go up through the photos just to give you a taste of what we have out there. That is the site again. That is that previously approved hay barn that we're going to relocate. Next photo, please. Another view looking to the north of that hay barn to be relocated. Thank you. That is the hay barn again. Thank you. So these are the structures or the animal barns that we have. This is the goat enclosure. It's, technically it's a building. It's 3-sided. It's got walls on it and a roof. Next one, please. Here are our Scottish cattle and their enclosure. And then we have our llamas and their enclosure. And then we have our donkeys. Next one, please. And then we have pigs. They're a little bashful, but they're there. Next one, please. And this is the vet station. And we take good care of these animals. Next one, please. And this is just kind of looking down the spread of them, avocados to the left and right. Is that the end of it? Okay. So that's generally what we're doing. Again, the ag barn, which is the major structures in support of ongoing agricultural operations and permitting these existing animal barns and veterinarian station for the care of our animals. Here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Anything you'd like to add, Kevin, as the planner?
Good morning, everybody. No,
Morning.
that was a perfect presentation. I have nothing to add, but also available for questions. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Any questions from committee members?
Yes, I have one, Mr. Lloyd. How can you, I'm trying to get my head around this. How do these animals, are they commercial? How do they fit in with the avocados?
Well, they're not commercially raised or marketed. They are farm animals that are kept on the property for the pleasure of the owner. They are not broad sales or breeding. They're an agricultural element that the owner enjoys for the diversification of agriculture on the property. As you know from my past presentations, our main commercial operation is cultivation of avocados. I believe we're the largest avocado operation in the county.
Can you kind of give us the area that they occupy, the animals, or kind of a personal envelope? That's why I'm asking that question.
Well, you can see the area that the pastures and enclosures encompass. I'm sort of guessing, but an educated guess, I would say it's somewhere on the level of probably an acre, maybe an acre and a half. Thank you.
Mark, hi, I'm Glenn from the assessor's office. I didn't have a note that we were missing the questionnaire, but my boss Sergio wanted me to mention it. He didn't think we had received it. So I don't know if you know, we send out the annual questionnaire on the property. Do you know if it was sent in this year?
Yes, I believe it's.
You believe it was
and,
sent in? Okay.
I have been handling those operations, but I have recently turned those over to a new manager.
Okay.
And my conversation with him is that he's been submitting those. I will check with him on that.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I can check also. But
Yeah, and
this is our opportunity to check on that. So.
yes, I know that the assessor's office is wanting to make sure in these opportunities that required submittal is made.
Yes, thank you.
I will check on that, but I believe it has been.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Lloyd, do you know which parcel number this parcel is? I just wanted you to look at my aerial.
Yeah, so as I said, this has had an aerial background in it. I guess when the PDF got loaded up, it might have got washed out. But you can see there's a cyan blue line there. That is the APN line. The property lines are in yellow. They actually really pop when there's an aerial photograph in them. But when there's not, they're kind of washed out. But the animal pins are on APN 97.
97, okay.
And
that's what I
then
thought.
to the south of that blue line is APN 98. It's one legal lot. I believe that the differing assessor's parcel was due to a Goleta Water District bond measure or something like that, or a school bond measure. A little different tax rate for one parcel versus the other, but one legal lot.
It's the page number 1 of the package. It shows
Oh,
the aerial. So
You know, there's an overall map, Sergio. It's that one again. The aerial got washed out of it. And I submitted drawings that showed all of the different ag areas and their acreage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
I'm looking at an
then not
aerial
ag development
photo.
envelope that same one you've seen in the.
Yeah.
yes, you do.
I didn't, I was just looking at photo map or just.
While we're looking at maps, just wanted to take the opportunity to see if there's any public comment on this item.
We have received no requests to speak and we have nobody in the audience.
Very good, thank you. Closing public comment.
So I just did a very rough polygon of what I think that area of hens are, and it's less than an acre. So, I mean, I was thinking the same in a line of thought that you did, Royce, that if we had to, and since if they are personal use, the acreage still would be within the allowances. And so, you know, if
Yeah,
we
so we're-
wanted to consider it that way.
Right, and we're looking at 2-3.1 incidental boarding and breeding is what we're looking at for the uniform roles, and I was just looking at 1A, 2-3.1A, only one incidental boarding and breeding facility located outside the designated building envelope is allowed on the premises for either commercial, personal, or combined commercial, personal boarding and breeding. So was there ever a building envelope designated, or that's what you're saying is you drew a size or drew a polygon in lieu of that
I was just trying to get a gauge as
as to the
Mr.
size?
Lloyd had said it was, he thought it was, you know, maybe an acre, and
Uh-huh.
probably that would be the max. And then, you know, but I wasn't thinking of the incidental, that would be an additional way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the preferable way of looking at it rather than just calling it personal use, because I don't believe there's not a principal dwelling on the contract, right? Or is there?
There is.
Oh, there is, okay.
There is.
Oh, I see. So you're saying there could be two ways to consider it. One would be just personal use.
Right, but incidental would be allow it to be located remotely, and we would
Uh-huh.
have to think about that.
Yeah.
And it gets, as you know, the same maximum allowance as the personal envelope.
Yes, so for this one, I'm just looking at the different findings.
Okay.
Is incidental, is that capped at a certain size? Is that also oh, here it is. I'm sorry, I misspoke. E, yes, 2 acres. So it's, would meet that finding on E, which is less than 2 acres or 3%, whichever's less. But I'm just looking at how do we interpret only one breeding facility located? Do we look at all the different, is that just one facility? I don't know how to interpret facility. Does that mean run structure or? Trying to think of a history, how the committee has looked at that.
To me, it's personal use, and so they have various types of animals, but it's their whole program, so I would count it as one.
Mm-hmm, okay,
One kind of envelope.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it is contiguous.
And what we're looking at, Mr. Lloyd, is just that consistency with the contract, not necessarily your proposal.
Indeed.
Okay. I am. I feel good about that. Any other comments from committee members? Any questions? Okay. All right, we've already taken public comment. I make a motion that the proposal for a new ag barn and animal enclosures and veterinarian station are consistent with the uniform rules. And contract number 12 AP 003 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I will second.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Have a discussion on the.
Any, yes, discussion on the motion?
I would offer just one addition to your motion.
Yes.
Just to reference in terms of the ongoing eligibility with the uniform rules, including, I would suggest including Rule 2-3.1 incidental boarding and breeding.
Good idea. So please amend my motion to include referencing Uniform Rule Do-3.1, which refers to incidental boarding and breeding, please.
Yes.
Yes. So if that ever comes up again. Good point. I heard a second. Okay. Roll call, please.
Okay, Royce Larson.
Aye.
Alex, David Lackey. Aye. Stephanie Stark
Aye.
and Glenn Kennard.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for your
Okay.
skilled service.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that concludes our items. We continued number 8. And any reports of committee members?
Not a report, but I have a question whenever we can.
Yes, I had one report. My report is that the annual crop report from the Ag Commissioner's Office is going to be released, and we are going to be presenting to the County Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, June 18th. After that time, the report will be available for the public, and we'll have it on our website. So just wanted to let everyone know.
I guess I'll do a minor report before Royce gets into his question. So just an update on the the agricultural enterprise ordinance that the committee had reviewed last fall and provided recommended uniform rule amendments to find some of those uses compatible. Planning Commission is still meeting. We met yesterday. I think our 6th meeting. The next meeting is going to be a special hearing in July. Potentially that might be the last. So just in terms of looking forward, moving to the board probably in early fall. And one of the things that I'll also have a conversation with the chair, but it's likely that and we can probably have this as a conversation for the committee too, is that we can report back on what the Planning Commission is recommending to the Board of Supervisors. It does differ from what the APAC had recommended in terms of uniform rule amendments. And I just mentioned that in terms of because Planning Commission does not give a recommendation on the uniform rule amendments. They were informed of what the APEC's recommendation is. But since we will be going to the board and part of the board packet of information will be the recommended uniform rule amendments from the APAC, whether or not the committee may want to, have a letter that provides some context to those recommendations in consideration of, either reaffirming, it could be reaffirming their original recommendation for certain reasons. And so I just
Kind of put that in context of why because it didn't line up with what our recommendation was.
just because, because the Planning Commission recommendation will obviously will be going to the board, and it may just be something that the committee may want to provide some context of what their recommendation and the rationale for it. And so I just throw that out now. We've still got time to have, and we can even have it as a discussion item if we want to do that this summer sometime. So we still have some time.
Okay. Thank you. Royce?
My question comes because of the case number 2 and 3. And it's a cattle ranch, but there's like 4 of these 16-inch wells on there, obviously for irrigation for ag. And I'm thinking of SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Act. The law is kind of a new law on pumping and stuff. When we consider that, do we need to think about, could he be pumping water to somewhere else across the road to the vineyards or anything like that? Is that of concern, or do we just say what he said, he's not going to use them and nothing else to it?
Side with scope.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the purest form, we're looking at the secure water source or the ag that supports their contract. If, I think it's more of a land use issue if they were selling water or something or doing, that happens sometimes where people are, have a well and they're trucking it off and they're selling water, that's a land use issue that needs to be addressed separately. I think, but it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is probably outside the San Ynez basins that are part of the ground that they're doing the groundwater management plans for. I don't think it's part of San Antonio Basin, but I think if it was in one of those basins, they would probably look at, they're trying to make an accounting of all the wells and extractions and getting data on those. Sounds like these may never have been put into production. Hopefully, they were drilled, and maybe it just doesn't get. They would just monitor it or something of that nature. Yeah, I think your original question. I think it would probably be a land use issue outside of the uniform.
Water agency, probably Mr. Young would be a good person to come in if we need before the committee to give an input.
Right.
There are some
Yeah,
things happening around the Sigma
Right.
and the agreements.
Yeah, if we were to transplant this property into the Cuyama Valley, obviously there might be different considerations. And then for Glenn, while we do enjoy having you here, just a curiosity. So, I know the tax rolls are closing probably here soon, right?
Yes, so
In
that's why
terms-
Sergio wanted me here. He got busy with some other things.
Right.
He asked me just yesterday.
Oh,
if I could
okay.
join. He was planning to be here, I think, and then. I
Right.
don't know. Is that your question?
Well, as part of that one, do we anticipate Sergio being back? Because I think part of,
Yes.
because of the crunch at the end of the year, we knew he was really busy. And then the second part of that question with the close of the tax rolls, and the sort of the production of the 2024 assessor's report on the ag contract that we always get from the assessors. I think we generally get it towards the end of summer. Is that kind of what you guys
I think it should happen
likely?
at the same time.
Yeah.
He works with our IT department. Pretty consistent.
Right.
Staying on the schedule. I don't foresee anything.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, he'll be back. He knows that 3 in a row meetings is a lot for me. He'll be back.
Well, he owes you a lunch.
Any more questions or reports?
Did have a question for Jonathan. So past meetings, they've been streamed live on YouTube and today's wasn't? Oh, it was. Okay. I was just looking because when we had the other, I guess maybe it was just when they had the other CSB TV 20 going and I was thinking that it wasn't being recorded. Maybe it
Oh, I see.
Okay, good.
All right, very good. Anything else before we adjourn? All right, adjourn the meeting at 11:29 a.m. Thank you.